welcome to Say Yes to the Best. I'm John from PGP Wedding Films. This is the show where we talk to the best wedding pros to help you with wedding planning tips. I'm with Danielle Salerno.
Hi, John. Thank you for having me.
So I know you wanted to talk about how important it is for you to have trust with your vendors.
Yes, one of the things that I notice as a wedding photographer is that the more a couple trusts me, the better I'm able to perform for them. The more latitude they give me, the better I am able to make their images in the long run, because they let me do silly things that maybe don't look like they're great, but when they come out on the other side of the lens, they're amazing. When you're looking at all your vendors, especially your photographers, you want to make sure that during the interviewing process, whether it's in person or on the phone, you're opening up to them. You want to tell them what your main concerns are about their role in your wedding. So when it comes to photography, I really love it when people tell me that they're afraid that they're going to look awkward or feel awkward in front of the camera, or they're uncomfortable about their body in some way, shape, or form, because I can address those things right out of the gate. And when we start that conversation in the very beginning, my couples can figure out if I'm right for them by learning how I'm going to handle their fears and how I'm going to calm them. And if you're talking to a vendor and they're telling you things that you're not quite sure about, especially when they're talking about how they will address your concerns, then maybe that's how you know it's not the right fit, and that's how you know you're not going to be able to fully trust them. But if you're concerned about something like feeling awkward in front of the camera, and I say to you, don't worry, I'm going to give you a lot of direction. So you're never going to feel like you're standing there with nothing to do, because I'm going to tell you what to do the whole time. There won't be any silence. I'll say, keep doing that. Maybe let's try it this way. And you're never going to feel like I'm laughing at you behind the lens, or there is some kind of pressure on you, because I'm going to be telling you yes or no the whole time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'm sure you have those couples who they send you an email and you email back and forth and you don't necessarily kind of get a feel of either of your personalities. For me, I always tell my couples, like, we should meet or we should talk on the phone, because like my style is kind of to be more fly in the wall. I try not to say too much, but at the same time, I'm pointing a camera at you on your wedding day. Like, you should kind of know if you find my jokes funny or if you don't like my vibe before the biggest day of your life. You should maybe do that over coffee or over a phone call. I think just kind of understanding your vendor makes a big difference in your own comfort level on your wedding day.
Absolutely. And I think that you taking those steps towards opening up and sharing your biggest concerns about whatever it is the vendor is handling. Like I said, in photography, it might be, I'll feel awkward, or can you capture post photos just as great as you can capture candid photos, or what would you do if it rains and we can't get outside and we can't shoot these beautiful outdoor photos that I want? However that vendor is handling those questions is going to give you a really good indication of if you're a good fit. And of course, along the way, when you have those conversations, your personality is going to come out. Which kind of leads me to another point, is that opening up back and forth and having that trust in your bond with your vendors beforehand. There's a really great way to do that without a lot of effort, and it's through social media. I'm not sure a lot of people talk about this, but you don't have to be separated from your wedding vendors. We want to be your friends. We're there with you the whole time throughout your day, especially your photographer and your videographer. We want to be invested in you and your weddings and know all about you, and that will help us capture the day better. So to develop that friendship and get that rapport going, I really suggest friending all your vendors on their social media, seeing what their hobbies are, seeing what they like to joke about. I have some couples where we'll joke back and forth about Harry Potter. I have some couples where we'll share baking tips and recipes. And that's great because when we get into the portrait mode, I know what's going to make them laugh and what's going to set them off and get them super comfortable showing their emotions right away so we don't have any awkward moments.
The more comfort level we can both have with each other, you're just going to get better stuff. And you're always going to feel and look more comfortable on camera.
Absolutely. And when you develop that friendship, you're going to trust each other more. You're going to feel more comfortable asking for what you need. Sometimes people, especially couples, they don't want to be a bridezilla or a groomzilla, and they won't come right out and say what they need. But we're your friends, and when you have that back and forth, you're not going to be afraid to ask for exactly what you need because you're going to know how we're going to respond to you.
Can an engagement session kind of help you develop a rapport with your couples?
Absolutely. I always encourage an engagement session, especially for couples who have never had professional photos before. And let's be honest, most of us haven't. They feel like they're a little bit unsure of how it's going to go, how it's going to be when the camera's in front of them. They don't know how they'll react. So I definitely encourage that time when it can be really just the three of us just working it out, and I can tell them, everything's going to be totally fine. You are safe in my hands. And the engagement session is just that time for you to go into the wedding knowing, hey, I've done this before. I've got this. Danielle made it super easy. And it's one less thing that I can worry about on the wedding day. And you have that experience of, I stood in front of the camera. Danielle told me to do some funny things. There was a lot of laughing. There was a lot of skipping and jumping and a lot of emotion. And I'm not sure how those photos turned out. Well, at the end of the engagement session, you get to see exactly how those photos turned out, which is amazing because you know your experience and then you see the other side. So you know that on your wedding day, if you're having a similar experience, you know those photos are going to turn out amazing.
Right. If you are told to skip in the engagement photo, you're going to feel a lot more confident when you're told to skip in your wedding dress or in your suit with all of your bridesmaids and groomsmen staring at you. You'll have that confidence.
Absolutely. And when I make a joke like whisper in her ear or give them a little lick or something very silly, that the result, even though it sounds crazy, is going to be amazing.
I know one of the things that a photographer really takes a big role in is building out your timeline. And one thing that, a couple might not really think about is what the light's going to look like on the day in regards to how to build a timeline. So what do you do to kind of help your couples get the best light in their photos and their videos with their timeline?
Working with your photographer early on your timeline is a huge gift to couples. Your photographer and your videographer are your only vendors who are there with you basically throughout the entire day. So they're your only vendors who are helping you with your timeline throughout the entire day. A few of the tips that I like to give to my couples when I am helping them with their timeline is how to structure their day based on the light. So we check out their date, we see what time the sun is setting, and we think, wow, we're going to get some really great portraits if we schedule within about an hour to an hour and a half of sunset. A lot of times couple will send me Pinterest boards or inspiration photos, and 9 times out of 10, it's a beautiful portrait with the sun kind of pouring over their shoulders. Everything's bathed in this golden light, and you're only going to get that if you're able to set up your timeline and your wedding day around the sunset. And a lot of people don't realize that. So checking in with your photographer is a really great way to make sure you make those photos happen.
Absolutely. And then, touching base with all your other vendors, because like your caterer or venue manager might not necessarily be thinking, well, the light's perfect at 6:00 because that's when they're planning on bringing everybody's entree out, or they're going to plan the first dance then because they want to get the entrees out at a reasonable time for you. So having that conversation ahead of the time is going to make so, everybody's happy, nobody's butting heads, and you are getting the shots that you are really, really wanting on your wedding day.
Absolutely. You have to be flexible between all of your vendors. Like you said, sometimes caterers are going to have differing opinions from your photographers. So you just have to always look at your priorities, listen to what all your vendors are telling you, and make the decisions from there.
And another thing that can really affect your timeline is a first look. So what are your thoughts on a couple doing a first look?
I am not different from most photographers. I love a first look because what most people don't realize is if your day runs behind, and that can happen anywhere, it could happen in hair and makeup or a few people running late or this, that, and the other thing, usually what gets cut short is your photo time. And that's just a disaster for a photographer who's working off a traditional timeline. And what I define a traditional timeline is when a couple is only seeing each other for the first time when they're starting their ceremony, and that kind of down the aisle moment, which is an amazing magic moment. But that being said, like I said, if anything runs late, and it can be anything that causes the day to run late, your photography time is hugely affected. Typically, you are doing your family photos, your wedding party photos, and your couple photos all within the hour that you're doing cocktail hour. So people who are doing a traditional timeline understand that they're not going to their cocktail hour because they're doing all their pictures then. And even an hour is a pretty small amount of time to try to squeeze all those portraits in. So a first look really allows you to expand your day. You're going to be able to spend more time with your future spouse, and it's your wedding day, so that's a really good thing. And you are going to be giving your photographer room to actually be creative and get those shots that you want without anything having to be too compressed. So even if the day runs late, when you have a first look, you have the backup of doing portraits during cocktail hour. When you are running late on a traditional timeline, there really is no backup. So maybe you end up doing your family photos on the dance floor during your reception, or all of your portraits that you wanted beautiful sunset golden light for, now it's dark and you have to do them inside with flash or outside with flash if you have a great photographer. A great photographer is always flexible. But first look is a way that you can relax, take more time in your day, spend more time with your spouse, your wedding party, even your family, because you can actually take that time that you would have been doing photos during cocktail hour and enjoy your cocktail hour, eat all those delicious appetizers that you spent a lot of time picking out, and just enjoy your party a little bit more.
I mean, I think if nothing else, that's great advice, just because, in my opinion, the best food at a wedding is the cocktail hour. So rapid fire question, what is your go-to appetizer at a cocktail hour?
I love soft pretzels. More and more venues are doing soft pretzels. One of my favorite venues, Running Deer in Pittsgrove, does a Philly station. So they do little cheesesteak sliders and cheese and little soft pretzel bites. So I'll just fill a whole plate with soft pretzels. And some people are doing a soft pretzel wall as an appetizer, and later, as a dessert, there's always that donut wall. But the soft pretzels is my favorite. Carbs just keep me going.
See, my go-to is always the bacon wrapped scallops. I just can't resist those.
Protein is great.
Well, Danielle, thank you for all of that great advice.
I tried to pack in as much knowledge as I could.
And thank you for watching Say Yes to the Best. We're going to have a lot of episodes out. Keep an eye on Instagram and on YouTube. And happy planning.